It's clear from the IG report that some very poor judgment was shown in terms of how that was handled. Keep in mind, though, that John Brennan was the person who called for the IG report, and he's already stood up a task force to make sure that lessons are learned and mistakes are resolved. With respect to the larger point of the RDI report itself, even before I came into office, I was very clear that in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, we did some things that were wrong. We did a whole lot of things that were right, but we tortured some folks. We did some things that were contrary to our values. I understand why it happened. I think it's important when we look back to recall how afraid people were after the Twin Towers fell and the Pentagon had been hit and the plane in Pennsylvania had fallen and people did not know whether more attacks were imminent. And there was enormous pressure on our law enforcement and our national security teams to try to deal with this. It's important for us not to feel too sanctimonious in retrospect about the tough job that those folks had. And a lot of those folks were working hard under enormous pressure and are real patriots. But having said all that, we did some things that were wrong.
Iran, Cuba, Venezuela, these countries are tiny compared to the Soviet Union. They don't pose a serious threat to us.
So let me be absolutely clear. Iran is a grave threat.
We can send 15,000 more troops, 20,000 more troops, 30,000 more troops. I don't know any expert on the region or any military officer that I've spoken to privately that believes that that is going to make a substantial difference on the situation on the ground. Now, I had no doubt, and I said at the time when I opposed the surge, that given how wonderfully our troops perform, if we place 30,000 more troops in there, then we would see an improvement in the security situation and we would see a reduction in the violence.
So if somebody wants to build a coal-powered plant, they can. It's just that it will bankrupt them because they're going to be charged a huge sum for all that greenhouse gas that's being emitted.
In Illinois and the U.S. Senate, Barack Obama helped lead the fight for clean coal to protect our environment and save good-paying American jobs.
Last year, you said if you were the nominee, you would opt for public financing in the general election of a campaign. You checked yes on a questionnaire.
We've made the decision not to participate in the public financing system for the general election.
You said in Idaho recently, quoting here, "I have no intention of taking away folks' guns." But you support the D.C. handgun ban, and you said that it's constitutional. How can you reconcile those two positions?
I have said consistently that I believe the Second Amendment is an individual right, and that was the essential decision that the Supreme Court came down on.
Well, I am not a nuclear energy proponent.
I favor nuclear power as one component of our overall energy mix.
Jerusalem will remain the capital of Israel, and it must remain undivided.
But I've also said that that's a final status issue. That's an issue that has to be dealt with the parties involved, the Palestinians and the Israelis.
I can no more disown him than I can disown the black community.
I am outraged by the comments that were made and saddened over the spectacle.
Would you be willing to meet separately, without precondition, during the first year of your administration with the leaders of Iran, Syria, Venezuela, Cuba, and North Korea?
Senator Obama?
I would. And the reason is this, that
The notion that somehow not talking to countries is punishment to them is ridiculous.
Senator McCain keeps on using this example that suddenly the president would just meet with somebody without doing any preparation, without having low-level talks. Nobody's been talking about that.
Without precondition.
I would. So let me be absolutely clear. Let me be clear.
Look, number one, the fact is that.
Okay, Obama is a terrorist first. Obama is supporting terrorism in Syria. We don't support terrorism. While
Lots and others. You tell the story about how you tried to find out what they call the Mossad when they deal with publicly?
I thought it was a reasonable question, but the trouble is you can't pick up the phone book. There's no Langley in Israel that you can look up, CIA, or in our case, the Mossad. We thought we should ask, what shall we call it in English? You can translate the Hebrew words, as I said, Mossad's Institute, but when they write a letter to their friends in the CIA or the British intelligence, what do they call themselves? It took a while. It was a matter of asking the Prime Minister's spokesman. The best you could do, because officially the Mossad is under the Prime Minister's office. And I think he sort of wondered why you want to know and all that, so we explained. And he came up with the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. I mean, if it were to have initials, it would be ISIS. Just simple words like that. Interestingly enough, kind of a British model.
Who's Yanny?
We tortured some folks.
Nazi Germany.
There's a secret man who comes at night and he bends the bananas. We met the secret man who bent the bananas. The bananas come out in this shape. And he did these amazing things, and I remember it made a tremendous impression on me. And that's how we first met, and then we met again and again and again. And each time, I was amazed more. I'm still amazed. I haven't the faintest idea how he does these things. And he bends the bananas. The bananas come out in this shape. We met the secret man.
Lots and others. You tell the story about how you tried to find out what they call the Mossad when they deal with publicly?
I thought it was a reasonable question, but the trouble is you can't pick up the phone book. There's no Langley in Israel that you can look up, CIA, or in our case, the Mossad. We thought we should ask, what shall we call it in English? You can translate the Hebrew words, as I said, Mossad's Institute, but when they write a letter to their friends in the CIA or the British intelligence, what do they call themselves? It took a while. It was a matter of asking the Prime Minister's spokesman. The best you could do, because officially the Mossad is under the Prime Minister's office. And I think he sort of wondered why you want to know and all that, so we explained. And he came up with the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. I mean, if it were to have initials, it would be ISIS. Just simple words like that. Interestingly enough, kind of a British model.
Okay, Obama is a terrorist first. Obama is supporting terrorism in Syria. We don't support terrorism. While
The essential point is there for the Jewish community to fasten on to. You have the first bit, which promises a national home rather than the national home, and then you have the bit that nothing that's to be done should in any way harm the Arab community.
Who's Yanny?
We tortured some folks.
Nazi Germany.